Is the Samsung Galaxy A21 worth buying in 2022? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy A21. Now, the Galaxy A21 was first released in June of 2020, which at this point makes the device about a year and a half old. And it is pretty amazing how fast time flies, because I remember it really wasn't too long ago when I first got this phone and had a chance to compare it to its predecessor, which was the A20. Now, of course, since then, we've also gotten the A22, 5G, and I'm sure the A23 is right around the corner. Now, this device, since being launched, has been a huge success at the various prepaid carriers in the US. Now, the A21s, which I will be doing a similar follow-up video about, was also a huge success, but that phone primarily was launched in international markets outside of the US. And then the A21 was pretty much meant for prepaid carriers, and then also for postpaid carriers as a more affordable option. Now, this particular device I originally bought at Metro by T-Mobile, and it still is holding up very nicely. Now, with the Galaxy A21, we're getting a 6.5-inch display, so a pretty large display overall. And with that display, we're getting IPS LCD technology. It is 720p with a PPI of 270. However, in general, I feel like the display still does look very nice. It certainly doesn't look like 720p at first glance, which makes it especially impressive considering that it does have such a large display. Typically, with a display this big and a resolution of 720p, it would be very easy to tell that the display is low quality, but in this situation, Samsung really pulled it off very well. Now we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor here, which is pretty similar to many of the devices that have been launched over the last couple of years. This form factor is becoming more and more popular because it really does work nicely with how most people use their mobile devices nowadays. Typically, people are using their phones less and less for phone calls and more for video chats, browsing social media, browsing the web, and especially if you have your social media feed pulled up on your device, having this taller display comes in handy because you can see more of your feed in a single frame without having to scroll quite as much. So I'm definitely a big fan of that. Now, this device features a 79.3% screen-to-body ratio, which overall is pretty decent. You probably noticed already, but we have pretty slim bezels on the sides and top, and then the bottom of the device does have a little bit of a thicker bezel here. But in general, I think the phone has a good, practical design, and I'm especially happy to see that we do have a hole punch for the front-facing camera. Now, the front-facing camera is 13 megapixels, and definitely take a look at my A21 review that I did quite a while ago here in the channel, as you'll be able to see a variety of different photo and video samples from this device. But in general, with my experience of using the various cameras here in the phone, it definitely takes good enough photos and videos that they're worth keeping and posting to social media. Maybe the only situation where the cameras would be inadequate is if you're using your device as a tool to go along with work. So for example, maybe you are a realtor and you want to take photos of an inside of a property that you're about to list. I definitely wouldn't use the A21 as the camera to take those photos. But if you just want to take a photo here or there, maybe to preserve some memories when you're on vacation, for example, then this phone is certainly fine for that. Now with this device, we're getting 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which definitely isn't too much. But thankfully, we do have microSD card expansion, so you can at least add a little bit more storage to the device. Now with the A21, there is no wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing. However, we do have a fingerprint sensor on the back of the phone, and this device also has face unlock. You can see right here in the settings, we have facial recognition and then the fingerprints. And then we'll give the fingerprint sensor a try right now. Very quick. One more time. Very fast. So I'm definitely a big fan of that fingerprint sensor, and in general, the placement is also pretty convenient. Maybe if it was slightly lower, it would have made things a bit better, but overall, it does work well. And I am, of course, glad that we do also have facial recognition here. Now, as far as the cameras go on the back of the device, we do have a quad camera setup, which is pretty impressive. There's a 16 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, which allows you to fit more content into the frame. It's especially helpful if you're taking photos or videos outdoors, for example. We also have a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera to assist with portrait mode, so you can get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And we have a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. So let's pull up the camera app right now and give it a try. There's me right there. So of course this is with the front-facing camera. We also have an option here to crop out a bit. So if you do want to take a group selfie, it does come in handy for that. We can also go over to live focus to get portrait mode. So again, those nice blurred out backgrounds that I know that are more and more popular, more now than ever. We'll flip around to the rear camera and we have the same effect here so that you can get those blurred out backgrounds. Of course, we can go over to the standard camera and just take regular photos as well. And then if you do want to crop out a bit, we can go to that ultra wide angle camera. So the ultra wide angle camera especially comes in handy if you are, like I mentioned a bit ago, on vacation. Maybe there's a big building you want to take a photo of. It's certainly going to be a lot easier to capture that with the ultra wide angle camera compared to just the standard camera. But either way, at least you have a lot of different options here, so you can go whichever route best suits your needs. Then going over to the More tab, you can see here we have macro. And then with the macro camera, we can get very close up and have things be in really nice detail. So again, none of the cameras that this device has are necessarily the best out there compared to pretty much any high-end phone. But at the same time, I do appreciate that we do have a variety of different options and features and abilities here. And who knows, maybe if you get this phone and you find yourself using the ultra wide angle camera, then you can justify going for something more expensive as your next device. Essentially, this is kind of a starter phone in the sense that you can try all these features, see what you actually like or don't like, and then if you want to take things to the next level, then you can always upgrade to one of Samsung's top phones, like the S21 for example. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A21, we have 3 gigabytes of RAM and the MediaTek Helio P35 processor. Now it is interesting to see, with this device and other devices that have been launched since then, Samsung has more and more often been including MediaTek processors with their lower end devices. And in general, it's not a terrible thing, but typically those processors aren't anything too special either. But for doing simple tasks like phone calls, browsing the web, occasional social media usage, and text messaging, it will get the job done. But you are going to run into at least some slowdowns here. Now I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test here with the phone. I'll show you the scores right now from that test. But essentially, I got a single core score of 167 and a multi-core score of 1003. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of whether or not the Samsung Galaxy A21 is going to be a performance upgrade for you, because it is possible that it won't be. Now, as far as video recording resolution goes, this phone can record video at 1080p, which is perfectly fine. I wouldn't really expect to get 4K video recording with a lower end phone like this one. Now we're getting a 4000 milliamp hour internal battery, so a pretty large battery relative to some of the competition out there. And we're getting 15 watt fast charging, which is definitely a really welcome thing. It's one thing to have a battery that maybe isn't massive, but if you can recharge it at a pretty rapid pace, then that's really good. Now, it does depend on which version of the phone you do get. Like I said, I got mine from Metro by T-Mobile. I believe, yep, it even says it on the back of the box right there, Metro. And it might be possible that at the time you're watching this video, they're still selling this phone at Metro stores. It really just depends. I don't know. Sometimes these devices, they'll have at the various carrier stores for like 2 or 3 years. It really depends on how quickly they can get through their current inventory. But anyway, though, the Metro version of the phone at least has NFC. And with NFC, you can make mobile contactless payments. So that's a feature that is more and more popular with a variety of different devices. So you'll definitely want to see if, when you're getting this phone, if you get this phone, it has that feature. Because if that is a feature you want and you think you're getting it and you end up not getting it, then I can see that being a pretty big disappointment. But now that we've gone over the various highlights of the Samsung Galaxy A21, let's take a closer look at the hardware here. So again, even though this display is 720p, in general, I'm pretty happy with it. It gets decently bright, and things do look crisp and clear here. So overall, no complaints. And I also appreciate that we are getting that hole punch for the front-facing camera. And then, we do have a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel, but it's not really that big of a deal. Taking a look at the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card, then nothing else. This is a plastic band running around the sides of the phone, and then the back is plastic as well. It has kind of a glossier finish, but we'll talk about that more in a second. On the right side of the phone, we have the power button, volume down and volume up. Then up top here, we have the noise-canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the phone, we have the speaker, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, microphone, and 3.5mm headphone jack. And then on the back of the phone, we have that quad camera setup, we have the flash, and we have the fingerprint sensor. And you probably noticed already, but this phone picks up a bunch of fingerprints. Really, that is the biggest downside of having this piano black finish on the back of the phone. It does look nice, of course. It is going to be smudged quite a bit unless you're constantly cleaning it. So that is something to keep in mind. And then finally, before we end this video here, I do want to show you really quick what all comes included in the box. So you can see right here, A21. And this could be different based on where you get the phone from. Remember, I did get this device from Metro. The first thing we have here is this packet. We'll open that up and see what we get. There we go, quite a few things in here. So we have quick start guide in Spanish, terms and conditions in English, terms and conditions in Spanish, and the quick reference guide / quick start guide in English. There we go. So you do have all the various booklets that you will need to get started. Kind of interesting too how it's both for the A11 and A21, but these are both really decent budget devices. Getting further in here, we do have the adaptive fast charger featuring regular sized USB. We also have a SIM card removal tool. And then finally, we do have the USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. So I do appreciate that we are getting pretty much everything we need here included in the box. But in conclusion, is the Samsung Galaxy A21 worth buying in 2022? In general, I feel like it still is a decent budget option. Honestly, there has not been too much innovation in this space over the last few years. Maybe the biggest innovation is that there are more and more lower end devices that do feature 5G compatibility. So if that is important to you, then I suppose this device wouldn't really be a good option for you. But in general, the A21 is still a very capable device, offering you pretty much most abilities that you'd expect in a modern smartphone. And there's some aspects of this device that are even better than some of the newer budget devices from Samsung, such as the fact that we do have that hole punch for the front-facing camera. We got other devices, back in 2021, for example, such as the A32 5G, and that phone has a teardrop notch at the top of the phone. So the point is, I prefer this type of design, but unfortunately, it seems like Samsung seems to be kind of moving away from it, especially in their devices that are $300 or less, and they're moving to almost cheaper designs. So I'm not sure why that is, not totally a big fan of that, but at least we do have the A21, and if you're able to get one at this point, it still is a decent option. Now, I will be linking to it in the description below, so you can take a look at some various options, and especially if you want to get this phone used or renewed or refurbished, there are quite a few ways to obtain it in that way. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the Samsung Galaxy A21 in 2022, and I will see you in the next video.